teamwork makes your dream work. Or does it? Welcome to the SIG Podcast. I'm Sunny. I'm joined by Roz and Chris, and we have a special guest today.
Hi guys, I'm Esther. Thank you for having me.
We're super excited to have you. Esther and I went to high school, so we've known each other for a pretty long time, and we just wanted to have her on, talk about some teamwork, some cooperation type stuff.
Yeah, we're at the beginning of the school semester again, so it's starting to get really annoying when I'm already being assigned like group work. Because I know some people like to work better alone, and other people like to work better in groups, or like to work. It really depends, honestly. Like,
it just depends on the quality of your partners, really.
I like that quality.
Honestly, it does come down to that. It also comes down to what the task is. Like, if it's a paper, I don't want anyone else working with it with me.
That's the truest thing ever. Like, the most annoying thing in the world is when all the like formatting and editing and all that stuff for a group paper falls on you, because someone has to go through and make it sound like it all came from the same author, I think.
I understand, because obviously the professor is going to be reading it and he knows that he or she knows that there's multiple authors behind it.
Right.
But professionally, what you want to do is make it flow, and everyone has different styles of writing. Like, I mean, you've seen me edit and stuff. Like, my style of writing is so it's so like floral. It's so
that's
random.
how yours is. Mine is like in that similar vein, but I think that it's a little more to the point at times.
All right, in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Illiterate.
Sunny's illiterate, but so like what the issue now is next Tuesday. Like, I got within a few days, I have something due, and it's a group project. Luckily, it's more informative, and we broke it down into like a PowerPoint type thing, and we're gonna each say our piece. But
the usual stuff.
Yeah, so it's the usual stuff. But when we were meeting today, like, I had both a good and bad experience. The good experience was everybody showed up. Everybody in the group showed up.
That's rare.
Before class. Yeah, I know.
That is super rare.
Before class, and we got all the tasks delegated, and everybody
nice,
at the time, we made a Google Doc, and then we kind of wrote a couple stuff. And when I sat down and started pulling some information, a quick source or link that I just copy pasted that we can use later, other people started putting stuff in too. All four of us were working on it at the same time, and I thought that was really good.
That's a beautiful thing, and I feel like that's really rare. I think that I actually had like a really similar experience last semester. I was taking like an online nutrition class, right? And so my group members, we've never seen each other in real life before. There was no actual way to contact each other through Blackboard, and so I had to go through and search for their like email addresses and stuff. Like, someone had to initiate this, but once I did like send out this email and say like, hey guys, I noticed that you're like with me in my group. I just wanted to say hi. I started a Google Doc for us, and maybe we can like talk about how we can like delegate tasks. So everything was like communicated through email. We didn't even like text each other or anything. And we actually managed to hit every single deadline perfectly. We hit like all the word counts and all this like source counts and all that stuff. It was like one of the smoothest group projects that I've ever had, and we didn't even meet face to face once. It was like such a rare success.
That's like even more extreme than my thing, because honestly, it just might be my own lifestyle choices that make me end up with like shitty partners all the time. It's just in this class, I'm in the class with Janet, and she's the person that's kind of sits in the front of the class, not all the time, but on the first day of class, we sat in the front because she sat in the front, and we were just, I don't know, she was actually paying attention. And then when we were told to make groups, she just clicked with the people around her.
So she left you? Oh
no. We're in the group.
Okay.
They asked us. But,
okay.
So I'm the only dude with a bunch of girls, and I don't know why, but
damn, I really thought she was like, all right, fuck it, right.
Yo, I'm half sure she was gonna do it, but we needed like the fourth person, and I was the fourth. So
that's hilarious.
Well, in any case, usually where I hang out is where people like me hang out, in the back, close to wall chargers, playing their games on the computer. And so that's probably why I have shit experiences. But the flip side of this is that when it came down to delegating tasks and like actually saying who's going to do what, there was some, I won't say disagreement. We all have our own thoughts, because everyone was kind of like an alpha. Everyone wanted to.
Yeah, when you get all those like type A personalities in one group, it's so hard to work with it, because I'm definitely like guilty of that. Like, I have a vision and I want to see that vision through, but that vision might not align with other people's. Yeah. But I still want to have it my way.
Like, if we were to have like
this isn't Burger King, though.
if we were to have a perfect example, it'd be right here in this room. Yeah. Like, me and Chris, just go ahead to, like, I don't know, man. It's It's
we
hard.
always allude to this. We still haven't really like demonstrated it in a podcast, but when the two of us get together in a room and start talking about some shit that we're passionate, really that I'm passionate about,
And
but
I
he
feel-
just wants to egg me on.
Yeah, I just want to have you fully express your opinion.
He likes
and to do that, I disagree.
invigorate my argumentative side.
And I'm just here, like a monkey in the middle, just looking these like thoughts bounce back and forth.
Sunny's a mother hen, the peacemaker.
It's like watching a tennis match where we're the players and Sonny's the net.
And every once in a while he gets lucky and catches a ball. You guys stop fighting.
Yeah. Or it's just the ball comes like
Mom,
hurtling
Dad.
at the net.
arguing.
Yeah.
Just caught in the middle of this. But it's
We're
always
getting a
interesting.
divorce.
Let's see you guys talk.
Yes, but I felt like starting with maybe a more positive story, and I'm glad you had one too, because that was sounded amazing.
Yeah, it's like as soon as
Because
you mentioned it, I was like,
generally, when I think of cooperation or teamwork, the first thing I think of is
shitty.
shitty coworkers or group mates who just don't do their work, don't pull their weight.
Mm-hmm.
Or even bad bosses.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
not
bad
people you
bosses, too.
work with, but maybe people you work for.
That's true. You know,
even,
Esther,
like,
I feel like is a
siblings.
unique case because while like, you know, Sonny, Roz, and I, we've definitely been on like kind of the receiving end of like group work as a kind of like teaching assistant and things like that. Esther's been on kind of the giving side of that. So she probably has like a unique perspective on like cooperation and teamwork within like a classroom setting. So we definitely like love to hear any stories you have about that.
Yeah, I do actually have a lot.
We knew you would.
But Chris mentioned you had a background teaching and stuff.
Yeah, so actually so I want to become a teacher, and so I try to put myself into a lot of teaching positions throughout like my church or like my school or anywhere that I could just put on my resume, like, or because I love it. I love to teach like the kids and like to build a relationship with them, but I think it's a lot harder, especially like in a church setting or somewhere close where you have people who also work with you, but they don't have the same passion
Oh.
as
Okay.
you.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that totally brings the whole morale of the situation down. Definitely.
Yeah, because I'm more like, I want to get to know these kids. I want to have the best for them. Even if like cleaning the room, like my classroom, that's like the number one thing, because I want the kids to have like a beautiful like setting instead of like somewhere dirty where they'll, they might fall or something like that. I just don't want that. But when it comes to like other coworkers who, I've worked with, it's just our thoughts don't really go hand in hand together.
Right.
And,
I can
like
see
my priorities are completely different from theirs.
Yeah.
And I think I faced that a lot, especially in a close setting. And I remember when, oh my gosh, like when some of my coworkers thought that it would be okay. So I never thought that I came off as rude. I thought I was just coming off as, I want to get this done. I'm putting 110% of my effort into this, but they saw it as rude. So I guess like in their perspective, like I can see where that becomes like, they could perceive it as rude because my 10% could be their 100 when they see it. So
I
That's fair.
see. I see.
That's fair.
I think
I mean-
anybody's 100% is just my 1%.
Wait,
What?
hold up. I think you switched that around, Sonny.
No.
You're
He knows what he said. He knows we disagree.
but yeah,
No one works harder on this podcast than Sonny.
That's why I'm always at zero.
Sonny is the bread, the butter, the plate, and the knife. He's everything.
Everything.
that's good.
But to your point, Esther, perspective is a lot where like one person's assertion might mean to another person might be like, why are you coming on to me like that? Like,
Right,
why are you
yeah.
like being so uppity about what you do? And I understand.
I think I have definitely met those kind of people where they put a lot of effort in, and I just kind of feel like a little intimidated. Like, oh, whoa. I'm not saying they're like rude or anything. It's just like they have a lot of bombastity.
Bombacity.
What a great
Is
word.
that a correct word?
That's
Yeah.
that's an SAT word.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. They just have that bombacity to them that you're just like, oh, wow. You just feel overwhelmed. Oh, like, you just like, oh, I just kind of want to get them out.
When you're in a workplace environment with people that don't necessarily have the same kind of drive, like I've definitely witnessed that in like different work environments that I've been in, or like different school settings. Like if you're really passionate about your major, for example, and you're willing to put in that like 110%, like Esther is at work, but you might have like a group mate or something like that. It's not really their major. They don't really care about the subject. They just need it for like a requirement or something. They're not gonna really give a shit, you know. Like, and it shows. It shows in their effort. It shows in like, you know, whatever communication that you have together. So it's a little difficult to work with the kind of people that don't necessarily have the same drive or passion that you do. So I could
Fully
definitely see
agreed,
where
and
you
I
come
can take
from.
it like a step further where, I mean, I also tutored a little bit for a while, and I ended up becoming like a lead, like a micromanager, I guess. No, a mini manager, and we ended up having to fire somebody because they, for weeks, just didn't care about the work they were doing. Like, I work with them, and I love kids. I love playing with them. I love working with them. I find it hard to like discipline them. Like, Esther, I know you're particularly good at making sure people do work sometimes, but
She has
me,
the rulers.
no.
We're not allowed to do that.
But like for me, I'm like super lax. Like we're teaching like kids to like these programming stuff. So sometimes people would end up making these crazy stuff in Minecraft, and that's not following the curriculum. And I'm just like,
You guys play Minecraft?
so we decode Minecraft. They
that's pretty
modify it.
Really?
Yeah. So
That sounds fucking
I should say this.
cool.
so we have to make sure. So we have to be really careful about not letting them play on it.
Oh
but there
man,
were times
I feel like that's
when-
just like stifling their creativity, though.
See, that's the thing. Sometimes they make some crazy stuff if you just let them have. Okay. Anyways,
that's
tangent.
We could do a whole podcast about that.
about
Ooh, that's
pretty
good.
about creativity and the society and how it's okay.
Yeah, like it's like who said it? Like Einstein or something. Like one
Or
of these
something.
like top dudes, these
One
like
of
top
them.
minds. They're like
Cool.
all
blah,
these
blah.
like kids are geniuses, but like by the time they reach adulthood, they're just not because like
I've read
however-
that somewhere.
yeah, like who knows who said it, but like yeah,
That's probably
that'd
me.
be- That's something. Probably was, but yeah. Sorry. Anyway,
No, you're good. You're good. And I had a drive for letting them try out new things. Now, sometimes
Yeah,
my
that's
manager
dope.
would come down and was like, all right, you know, you got to make sure this, that, and the other. And I totally agreed. And we did it the right way. And even then, my manager let the leash out a little. Let the leash out. Is that the right term?
let the leash out.
Loose.
Let off. Yeah, let I don't know. Anyways, they let them have their
Let the
creative
collar
time.
loose.
Yeah, they let them have their creative time as well, and they came out with really cool stuff. But I had one guy who would come into work like usually late, but he didn't care about the kids' creations. Whereas like the creativity was cool, and if they did work cool, he just kind of had his logbook, made sure okay, you did this assignment, percentage, whatever, and we just kept day in and day out until one day he came in drunk.
He came in
Wow.
drunk.
He came in drunk.
Wow, that's not good.
So obviously he was fired right at the moment.
Yeah,
It was
on the
after he
spot.
left that me and the other leads and our manager was just chilling and talking. It was like, yeah, only after let him go do we see that the indicators of like, you know, passion were like just not like they're all there. We should have known.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
And
That
it
makes
always pissed me off because when we worked together, he had more technical skill than me. That's the other thing where even though our passion don't align, sometimes the other group members have the skills and they have what it takes.
You've raised a really good point. There's definitely a distinction between employees that are like happy, willing to work, willing to learn, willing to give their best versus people that have maybe a more impressive hard skill set than you, but they don't necessarily have the soft skills to be someone worth working with. So that's a big time distinction to make. And I think that's just a really good point.
Yeah, it was hard for me at first to kind of get to know these guys, but he was okay to work with. Like he was super compliant and he did what was asked. But his technical skill, especially in programming languages that I was not as skilled in,
Right.
he covered a lot of questions I had and other people had. It's just he didn't care enough.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes with kids, and Esther, you work with kids, like that's huge.
Yeah.
That's like a really big thing.
Do you notice anything similar with your coworker that you were talking about?
Yeah, so the coworker that I had, his mom was actually my boss too. So we all worked at the same place. And I think it got a little bit harder when, you know, when mother and son.
Actually, family and business.
Family business is not that good.
Yeah, nepotism.
Yeah, like,
Well, no, even beyond that, it's like a disagreement in the workplace could turn into an internal like family disagreement.
right.
Family Feud.
And yeah, and I remember
Steve
like,
Harvey shows up in your living room.
but I
Answer is,
remember
how
like,
many people? Sorry, continue.
no, it's okay. I remember like, shit, I forgot what I was gonna say. Hold on, let
Oh,
me think.
shit.
Your
Mother and son.
your
Oh,
the employee
yeah.
you worked with, his mom was your boss.
Yeah, so I remember where the coworker and I got into a little disagreement for like 3 days because my boss wasn't there, so she had to take a little bit of a leave. And when she came back, she heard all of these things by him because they're related, they love each other. Where I get mother son, obviously, like she's going to listen to him,
Yeah.
and you think the worst, of the situation, but to me, all I saw was favoritism. I couldn't really see like how she just wanted to understand him first because that was her son. But to me, it felt like it was just backfired because I know what the situation was. I knew what he said to me and what our discussion was, and for what it turns out, he actually turned it around and he told everyone else, like all of his family members, the lie.
Yeah.
And I remember we were having a meeting in front of everyone, and then we were about done, and then my boss asked everyone like, "Hey, like, so do you guys have any questions or concerns by just last week of, work?" And then it was his turn, and he actually ratted me out right then and there.
He ratted you out?
Yeah, he was like, "There's somebody here who is making me so annoyed."
Oh my
and
god.
making me feel like a child.
That's petty as fuck.
That
He
is.
literally
That's like
in front
passive
of
aggressive.
everyone. Like it was the whole staff meeting. I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like jaw open. All my friends knew exactly who he was talking about because I too, I shouldn't have, but I also ranted to my friends too. And
So you guys had your own army. You guys started.
yeah, we all had each army, and then. But keep in mind, I also have my family there, so he wasn't the only one. So
Okay.
he was just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like literally, that's what he said. Esther, oh my gosh! Like she's making me so annoyed. She's treating me like a child. I tried to apologize to her, but she said, "Go away." And then I was like, "Okay, hold up. First of all, that's not what I said."
Crack the knuckles a little
Yeah,
bit.
I was like, "Yo, dude." I was like, first of all, sir. If you knew, that's not what we said. I said that I'm working, so we can't put personal things right then and there. So let's talk a little bit later. And those kind of things. And then his mom went off at me at that moment. And she was like, "You need to stop saying those kind of things because you're making him look like the villain." And I'm like,
Wow.
okay. Like, did that really just happen? And then, and at the end, I think I just let the emotions get the best of me and the stress just accumulated inside of me and I just started crying. And then that's when, like, my cousin was like, like, she knows her kids best. Like, she knows what she's doing. I also heard some of the things that went on between her and him. Like, but at the same time, I feel like employees within each other should respect each other, the way that we talk. And, like, from what I've heard, like, him saying that, I was like, yeah, like, I should have been the bigger person just to step up. But at the same time, like, man, like, it was for 6 weeks that I just felt like complete shit. Like,
I will say, when you said you let your emotion get the better of you, I was expecting like, I threw hands or like I like argued really loudly with them or whatever. But when you said you broke down and cried, that's a fair response. I mean, given shitty treatment at the workplace, especially when you see favoritism, and when we feel like we're being treated unjustly or unfairly, that's fair. You're allowed to have that. I will say just a couple of things about that. When families introduced to like business, it's
Things get
theoretically you should, but it's pretty much impossible to separate the argument between just business or professionalism versus family and internal matters. But I think, and I was just raised this way, even if I had an issue with like my younger brother, right? My little brother would sometimes. Yeah. Okay. I might have said this before.
Yeah.
I told a story. Yeah. So he would cry and like yell from the downstairs to my mom, saying they're bothering me or whatever, and she would always believe him and get mad at me and the older siblings until she found out it wasn't that way at all. Sometimes you just do it for attention. So now if there's ever a dispute, and maybe it's because she learned it early, my mom's like, "All right, I agree with you, and you're probably right, but you know what? I'm still gonna hear the other side." Or when people say something about me, she doesn't immediately go, "That's my son, you can't talk about him like that." Or maybe she does say that, but she still comes to me later and says, "Okay, so some people said some stuff about you. I want to hear your side of the story." And then we get it resolved somehow.
That's a good way to go about it. Like, my mom is a teacher, and she talks about kind of like the responses that she gets from like the parents of her students and stuff. And I think that when our parents were going through school, if the teacher had an issue with the student, it was the student who kind of got the punishment. Now it's kind of flipped, where if the teacher has a problem with the student, it's the teacher's fault, or they kind of blame the teacher, or they're like, oh my, they're in denial or whatever.
I feel like it's a mix of both, and both are wrong, really.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening is, I don't know, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. Go
Okay. I feel like, let's say there's a bad grade, or maybe there's a complaint that a student has about another student. Both take the L. The parents are usually the one that don't take the L. It's more like a blame game where the kids are usually held accountable, saying, "Yeah, I understand that, X, Y, and Z might have happened, but you should not have hit that person. It doesn't matter what the circumstance was. You should not have gotten that bad grade. It doesn't matter the circumstances," right?
Yeah.
That's kind of, I mean, I'm taking extreme here, but that's one side where the student takes the L, and then the teacher takes the other L, where, my student said this. My child said this. I think you should fix it. He's having issues with this.
What's
I think you should
amazing
fix
to me
it.
is like, these kids are pretty young, and the parents just seem to take the word of the kid at face value, and they just kind of accept it as like law, which doesn't make any sense, because like, if you think back to when you were a kid, you probably lied and like kind of manipulated the truth to kind of avoid trouble or whatever.
Go ask your mom. You go ask your mom.
Yeah.
Go ask your dad. He said yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then once my mom said yes, I went back to my dad and says, yeah, she said yes. So although I didn't, okay, I kind of, yeah. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you have done it before.
Yeah.
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 It's
all
just like that. And if you really think about it, if a teacher has a problem with the student, they're not going to invent a problem that doesn't exist.
That is also
What
very, very
incentive
fair.
does the teacher have to make a lie up about your kid? There's none.
I don't think there is any, really.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like when you see children or like little children, especially, it's because I take care of like 3-year-olds, or this summer I did, and children are what they see, like at home. So whatever they bring back to, the public, it's what their parents have taught them. They're the mirror image.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when, my friend and I actually talked about this, where humans are the most hypocritical beings. Not like saying that we are, like
we probably
here,
are, though. Like,
but we are because
compared to who else?
like we would,
that's fair.
yeah,
Yeah.
we get annoyed at things that we do ourselves. So like being late, for example, I get annoyed at someone being late, but actually when Chris was picking me up today, I was 10 minutes late. And so like, but normally I would get annoyed at that as someone else, if that makes sense.
That's true. I think do you think that there's like a correlation between like the more you expose yourself to your own hypocrisies and like the more accepting you become of it? What I mean by that is the more that you're late yourself, or the more that you're around someone that's late and you kind of notice you have those feelings, the more you're kind of like, maybe I should like mellow out a little bit.
Okay, so I'm gonna
hypocrite.
I'm gonna say 100% yes.
I just accept it.
This is kind of a.
I want to hear Sonny's take on this.
Okay, yeah, you're Sonny, go for it.
Sometimes I think to myself, I'm like, damn, I'm a giant, huge hypocrite when it comes to certain events or something. Someone says something, and like, I always think when it comes to my now when Ross is talking about siblings, I think back to my little sister and how sometimes she does things and like she like likes to talk back and all that stuff, and then I think to myself like, I give her lectures too, like why she shouldn't do that, and then I do the same thing. I'm like, and I just think back to myself, I'm like, damn, I'm a huge hypocrite, and I just mellowed down on it. I mellowed down myself too. Like I should probably like be a better example to my sister and show her not to do that kind of stuff.
Sure. And then when she does it again, do you kind of feel like, you know what, I do it too, maybe I should like not say something this time or something like that?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was getting at as far as the
but-
correlation.
So there is a good to it where you kind of learn, but I'm gonna highlight a kind of negative part of that, which is
Complacency.
yes, that's the word. I was trying to find the word.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I have my own example to give. I generally hang out with people who don't really like sports, aren't really their thing, like
Sure.
working out.
Mm-hmm.
Sunny is the exception.
Sunny is the exception.
He's like the fittest, biggest guy. He sounds nice, but he's big.
Behind that soft voice is 6'4" frame, 220 pounds, straight up
12
Laotian
pack.
American. Muscle.
Two 6-packs right beside each other on each side. Okay.
You can play it like a xylophone.
No, but like, and I started hanging out with people like who would to eat food would go out. I'd always brought lunch to campus, and now like at least like thrice a week, I'm just eating food here. And it's just I started getting like lazier and lazier, and that's like complacency at work.
That's complacency. It's also kind of adapting to the environment around you a little bit, getting used to that.
Yeah. So when you said meld
lifestyle.
out, like I was thinking, I was referring to like the late example, where if you're always around people who are late, and
You become late yourself, right?
Yeah, or let's say you're also late. Let's say you used to get pissed off if people are late. You brought them to task. You said, "Yo, try not to be late," and then they actually do get better. But then over time, you see that times you're late, you start caring less about it. You're like, "Well, I mean, they're late too all the time," and now it's just kind of a thing. I will say though, for Chris, you seem to have a lot of experience with someone else around you being late, and yet you are punctual.
Me.
So I'll give a quick update from. I think we were talking about Squid Peeves episode. Yeah, things that were like mildly annoying to us. I brought up the example of my girlfriend Riza, like her and like kind of her family. If we were like meeting up or something like that, sometimes it's not really her fault or anything. It's just like they're all traveling together. There's like a lot of them, and so you know it takes time.
Of course.
In the beginning, that was like a couple months ago. In the beginning, that did bug me a little bit, but I've definitely started to be late myself in that context because I know that if I'm late,
You're technically on time.
I'm gonna be on time.
Okay.
Yeah, that kind of actually like reminds me of like a cooperation kind of like principle called game theory. It's where you have like two players and then the only options are cooperate or defect. So it ends up looking like this 2x2 grid where both people can cooperate, and that's like a pretty good outcome. Like you actually benefit a pretty good amount. Or one person can defect. The person that defects gets the benefit while you who cooperated loses. Vice versa. And then both people can defect, and then you're not going to get as bad as if only you defected, but it's still not going to be great. And so it's this like suboptimal outcome where both people are usually defecting because the incentive is greater to defect because there's a good chance, or not a good chance, but there's a possibility of you winning big versus both of you cooperating and winning a little bit. So it's like this incentive comes from like the possibility of you like winning big in some capacity at the expense of someone else's loss.
There's usually a third party involved, and that is whichever system you're in that's giving you those options.
Sure, yeah, that's true. There's always got to be like some
So like
context.
Well, at least the way I'm understanding it is the prisoner's dilemma. I mean, I'm a criminal justice major, so what I understand it as is usually if they had the ability to communicate before and they understood the stakes and everything, they would almost always opt for, given all the information available, they would opt to cooperate with each other all the time.
Yeah,
right.
And
'Cause
I actually find that that's like a lot more common than like the theory would have you believe, because defection, although it makes sense to like the rational player or something like that, because regardless of whether if you cooperate, it comes with a big risk.
Yes.
If the other person defects, you're gonna get fucked.
You're screwed.
But if you also defect, you're gonna get a milder punishment, or you're gonna reap some kind of great reward.
But at the cost of the other person.
At the other person,
you could have cooperated with, you're screwing them over hard.
Yeah, so if you understand the rules of the game being if you both cooperate, you're both going to win a little bit. That's more optimal than both of you defecting and both of you like losing a little bit.
Okay, so what if I disagree with you in saying that it makes more sense to cooperate if, let's say, the stakes are higher. The stakes are like death penalty or like
well, that's like a classic
life in jail.
That's a classic
or,
example.
You know, you get off scot-free and your records are expunged or vacated. And that's why I was bringing up the third party. The third party is usually the person who's lying to you. It's usually the interrogator or whatever, and they tell you, all right, here's the thing, your buddy, he already ratted you out. You can lower your sentence, by just admitting it instead of trying to fight this.
Let's put it in terms of the 2x2 matrix, right? So let's say that the top left corner where both parties are cooperating is 2 years of jail.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that the bottom right corner, which is both parties are defecting,
As in they're ratting each other out.
yes, is 5 years in jail. Okay?
Why is cooperating too? Oh yeah, true.
2 years in jail, they're not telling who is involved.
Mm-hmm.
So you're being quiet, your lips are sealed, neither of you are saying anything, you only get 2 years each. If you both tell on each other with the promise of not getting the death penalty, you're both ratting each other out, you both get the longer penalty because you've been ratted out.
But it's a milder punishment than if one rats one out and the other one doesn't.
Yeah. So let's say that the other thing, if he like gives out the names of like the people that he was associating with, he gets off with like a much lighter sentence, or maybe he even goes free, while the other people get like 50 years in jail.
So it's incentivized to actually defect.
Yeah, because regardless of what the other person says, A, you're not going to die, and you're going to be in jail for less years than if you cooperate.
Yeah.
If you both cooperate, that's not the case, because like obviously you're getting like 2 years each. Both defect, you're getting 5 years
Even
each.
knowing that everyone cooperating would be obviously the best. What if the situation is such that you don't know whether they cooperate or not? Because the prisoner's dilemma, the idea is that the different individuals are held separately. They have no communication with each other.
Yeah.
And that's why the interrogators can lie to you and say, they said this, they said that.
Yeah, so there's obviously going to be a lot of information asymmetry because you're in two separate rooms with two separate investigators or interrogators or whatever. The obvious choice from a rational, like, economic standpoint is both players just defect, because you're either going to win big or you're going to lose not as bad as if you defect and then the other, or like rather you defect and then the other person cooperates, right?
And the reason saying this is not always how it plays out is because, well, in my opinion, it's probably that human element where you have loyalty to either your friend, whoever the person is, whatever the purpose of the reason you're there is for. Also, wouldn't you feel like shit if you end up defecting and then they were actually true and you're like, fuck, I just screwed him over?
I'd be super guilty and I would move to like Cuba.
Because now you won big. But you basically, because they...
Also, I'm in hiding.
Yeah.
I don't want this dude to come out in like 50 years and fucking kill me or something.
Oh my God.
Well, you have to think about that too.
That's
Actions
fair.
have consequences.
That's fair. And obviously, this is a very limited like perspective. We're only talking about like, the police side and that. I mean, this works out in like so many other ways. Like, just last night, actually technically this morning, but last night I was playing with Razmay, I was playing League. You guys have heard me talk about that all the time. And we suck, so we've been on like a losing streak, but we won yesterday's game and it was the craziest thing ever. There was actual cooperation involved. And
imagine that.
Dude, okay, so here's the thing. I am what they call a solo queue player. It's a 5v5 game, so you should be cooperating with 4 other people against 5 people, right? How it usually plays out is everyone only plays for themselves. Like, if you turn into a first-person shooter game perspective, it's just shoot everything, you get all the kills, right?
Yeah.
Screw the objective. Whereas me and Razmay, we're like, since we start playing together, we start cooperating more, we're trying to win the game in the smartest way possible. I'm not saying we're good at it. That's just kind of what we're trying to do. But we still always encounter enemies and allies that end up just trying to play for themselves. They play, selfishly, or they get triggered easily.
Yeah.
Very toxic community. But last night, we actually met people who were, they were toxic. Our allies were toxic. But they actually, like, listened, and they actually backed up. Everything was going correctly, right? It was so weird. When we asked a question, or when we said, hey, can you tell me about this, or could you help me with this, they actually responded. Sometimes they didn't cooperate, but they still responded. And sometimes that bit of communication saying, no, I can't do that, or no, I'd rather do this, still allows us to make decisions smartly instead of just watching somebody walk in and try 1v5ing and just getting wrecked.
There's like a more informed choice being made. I would have like insta-friended all of them.
So here's the thing. The reason we did, I was playing with Razmay, and Razmay was losing his part of, he was losing at first, but he made up for it and then got better later. Throughout the game, it was like a 30-40 minute game. But within those first few minutes when it was starting off a little rough, the person on the other side, one of the people we didn't know, was in me like, yo, this guy sucks. And me and Razmay and me like, man, we're gonna hate this game.
Mm-hmm.
Now at the end he did well, but he was still an asshole. He still kept calling him out. So disagreements can happen, and so cooperation doesn't always mean the physical act of cooperating. It could also just mean the communication, which is which is kind of what I wanted to highlight with that prisoner's dilemma thing.
Yeah.
Is because the thing you're limiting there is the communication. I don't know. I just thought that it's a really cool theory. I learned about criminal justice. You learn it in like economics.
Yeah, there's actually like this other really cool kind of like game theory-ish like problem, and it's called like Newcomb's paradox. Basically, there's like a predictor, a player, and like two boxes, right, in a room. There's
a predictor, a player, and two boxes.
Yeah. So like in the room, there's a player, predictor, and two boxes A and B.
Okay.
Box A is transparent. Box B is opaque. Box A always contains $1,000 cash that you can always see because it's transparent. Box B is opaque. It either contains $0 or $1 million. So the rule is that if the predictor has predicted that the player will take both boxes A and B, box B contains nothing. It contains the $0. Player only walks away with $1,000.
Okay.
So basically, like if he chooses both boxes, he only gets the $1,000, right? Mm-hmm. If he only chooses the opaque box,
he gets $1 million.
He gets $1 million.
If he only chooses the transparent one, he just gets 1,000.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So the predictor would probably say, all right, he's going to go for both, and he's going to end up with only 1,000.
Yeah.
Because then the $1 million box will be 0 because he chose both.
I kind of have a theory about this. So, like, let's say, assume that the predictor is not, like, fully omniscient or whatever, and he doesn't actually know, like, what the guy's going to pick. Let's say that by default, he always, like, picks box B, and it has, like, the $1 million or something in there, right? Mm-hmm. If he takes the $1 million, maybe he's just happy and like hits the road or something. But if he goes to the black box and sees that it's empty, obviously you're gonna pick A too.
Yeah.
So maybe he's just like satisfied with $1 million or something, and so like by default he only opens up the one.
Be pretty satisfying, you know.
Yeah. But like opening up A and B, if you're guaranteed to only get like $1,000 if you open up A and B, it could be that. Yeah. That was like
interesting.
What if I don't take any?
See that's so Sonny took the high road.
I guess that's valid too.
He's like, I'm not falling for your schemes. He just beat up the predictor. He's just gonna take the $1 million.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of highlights also like information sharing. That's how big that is.
Yeah.
But, back to like the game theory stuff. Actually have a story to tell. It has to do with game theory. I took Game 101, I believe it was like sophomore year, maybe freshman year. I took it with Razme and Leilani, who've been on this podcast before. And I took it also with Sunny. Yeah. It was 4 of us, and we had a blast. But I will say this. There was a time when we worked on a project together. No, there were multiple times when we worked on projects together. And there was always a common thread between them, and it's that I felt like someone wasn't pulling their weight. Okay, so let me explain that. So we had this project, we had this midterm to do, and we had to create a game. And the purpose of the game was obviously to build our portfolio if we became, game developers or whatever. But also it was to highlight a specific lesson that we learned, and it's flow, right? And what flow is difficulty and skill, right? So if something is too difficult and you're really bad at that particular skill, like platforming, it's just anxiety-inducing, right? You're just gonna be anxious, you're gonna be frustrated, and you're gonna quit the game. Me and Dark Souls too.
Yeah.
If the difficulty of the game is really low and you're really good at it, like Sunny playing Dark Souls. Actually, no, he actually enjoyed that. Sunny, what's a game that you're really like that's supposed to be difficult, but you had no trouble with it?
I guess I'll just say Sekiro.
Yeah, Sekiro.
Okay.
He plays that game like a fucking.
All right. Well. Okay, so let's say this is a really easy game, and whatever skills that game demands, you're really good at it. You're gonna get bored. Right, so what you want is kind of an equal ratio of both skill and difficulty in a game. So Dark Souls 3, and for those who don't know, Dark Souls is a game series which is notoriously difficult, where you die a lot, where you're punished a lot for your mistakes. And Sunny, I feel like at least, has a lot of skill in particular regards, especially those type of games. Mm-hmm. So he achieved something called flow, which is you're having fun. It's not too frustrating, and you're not getting bored. Right, so we were trying to do that. We were trying to think of a game. We made the game document and everything, and it was kind of understood that Leilani was kind of like she was gonna do some of the artwork and stuff. I forgot what roles we delegated at the time, but I distinctly remember Sunny being the idea guy. And if I recall, we were all the idea guys and gal. So I don't know. It just felt like there wasn't like a lot being done, but that's kind of the overarching part. But there was one time we were at his house. We were actually creating the board game, and Leilani did a lot of the write ups, like the document work for us. So the three of us were going to actually create the thing, right? And we were more into the rules and how to play and how difficult to make it. Large piece of cardboard, paper, not cardboard, but large piece of paper. Not crayons. I can't talk. Color pencils.
What is it?
I'm sorry. All right, so it was color pencils, and I'm on one end, and Erasmus on the other end, and we're coloring it in, and we're using Sharpie and like markers to like make the edges like more contrasted or whatever.
Ooh.
We're not artistic, but we can kind of follow a ruler, and Sonny's just kind of watching us at his house, and we're like, "Yo, Sonny, you want to help us?" He's like, "You guys want more colored pencils?"
How kind of him to offer.
That was it, and then that was midterm. Come final exam. I forgot what happened.
He sniffed.
I feel like something happened.
Nah, I was working hard. I
Oh,
wrote characters.
wait! I remember.
See, different
Stories.
perspectives here.
No, that's fair. Okay, now I remember. When it came to the layout, so we had to do another game, but we didn't have to create it. So we can make it like a
Pitch.
Yeah, it's a pitch. We have to make a sales pitch for a game that we conceptualized, but we don't have to actually make. So we can make it like an actual video game with all sorts of stuff because we don't have to actually make any of it, right? We just have to make it professional and hit certain points. Razmay did a lot of the work with like game controls and what button does what. Leilani did again a lot of the. I feel like we made her do a lot of the boring stuff, but she also did a lot of artwork. Where the characters we made, she made like artwork for it. I put most of my effort into, if I remember correctly, it was just creating the stories and like writing the actual documentation for each person. And Sonny was again our idea guy, and his ideas were pretty interesting, like the characters, their story arcs, until we slowly came to realize, I guess Razmil already knew, being his best friend and all, they were just rip-offs of other stories and other games and other storylines, and I'm like, man, what the hell?
Sometimes my mind just goes back to those things.
So, I mean, I just feel like, okay, so this is, I'm not ragging on Sonny, this is not negative at all, this is just, I'm just being funny, but I do remember that. Don't worry, Sonny, I remember
I was there for moral support. I was cheering them on while they're coloring the map board for me. And
To be fair, he did give us like a lot of content to work off of, and he did offer us his house to work at. So thanks for that, at least.
They worked really hard. I was proud of them.
Now you sound patronizing. All right, but yeah, so that's kind of like bring back this whole school thing where you're always working with people. Like sometimes it gets personal too, right? It's not just working with random people you don't know. This can also happen between friends and stuff. Because I mean, we were already hanging out and stuff, and that kind of happened.
It just comes down when you're working with friends and then you're working with strangers, is that you're more forgiving towards your friends than complete strangers, and that's where
That's true.
my story comes in.
Ooh, I want to hear this.
So I have an IT class. It's basically like a business class, and we had this huge group project at the end. This is like the final project. It's worth like 30% of our grade, so it's huge. And so I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big, huge procrastinator, and so it was my other group members.
Procrastination. Procrastination is an art. And I was about to say I am an artist, but I think we are artists. Minus Chris.
Minus me. Yeah, I actually I'm super ahead of the game.
Yeah, he's punctual.
I don't understand.
He uses OneNote to actually like delegate his own tasks and like prepares himself for like the following like next 50 years. Like he knows when he like. All right, sorry.
I wish I could be that Chris.
Sorry, continue. Son.
But yeah, so we kind of like pushed this all back towards like the final week. So me and my group, because I know Chris would be fucking like tear his hairs out if he ever like was in the group like me.
Or your hair out.
Someone's hair would be out.
But there was like one guy who actually like kind of stood up and became the leader of the group. He kind of delegated tasks for everyone, so like everyone was doing their thing. And then one guy that we delegated to, he was supposed to do. So our project was basically we were supposed to read articles and write about it and then present it to the whole class as like some kind of presentation. So we all, since it was like an even amount of articles we had, so we split it evenly among the group. And so we're all doing our work, and then towards the last day, the other guy, the last guy, he still had to do his 2 articles.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
And then he texts us, all of us, "Hey guys, I'm not going to show up. I'm not doing this project. Just take my name out of it."
Wow.
Literally, he said that
It
to
was for the final, right?
Yeah, for the final.
Oh.
What the hell?
And he said, "I'm not going to be in it. Just take my name out."
Well,
On the last day before
that
we had to
totally
present.
screws you over.
So so the leader, he's
That
like,
sucks.
"Wow, really?" And so we had to basically do all his work for him on the last day, right? Like literally right before we had to present. It was crazy.
Betrayal.
I felt so betrayed.
Dang, that's your final though, and but he just.
Yeah, he just said, "Nope, I'm not gonna do it."
There's one saving grace here. One saving grace. Usually, not usually, but whenever there's that one person, there's always one person. Sometimes multiple people who don't do their work, like on a real extent, like that, like on a final project, they don't do anything, right? The one saving grace he had was that instead of simply like procrastinating, "Hey man, I can't do it. I'm really sorry, but I'll present it." If someone could just throw something together, he said, "All right, you know what? I'll take the complete L." You know, he probably knew what he was putting us through.
That's true.
Oh, wait, hold up. There's more to this story. I forgot.
Uh-oh.
Besides that one guy not
Did
doing
he
it,
cut? Did he open?
there was another guy. So this is on the day of the presentation. So we were like, I think like 20 minutes away from presenting. One guy didn't show up, and he's like, "All right, can you guys lie for me that I got into a car crash?"
Oh my god.
That's like the most serious thing
And
ever.
that I will try to get like a grade for the presentation.
I'm telling you, if you lie about that stuff, the karma will bite you in the ass. You will get in a car accident.
It
Yeah,
will.
so he basically tried to tell us to lie for him and that he will get some kind of grade for it.
Mm.
Like he did the work, but
He didn't wanna
He
present
just
it?
didn't want to present. Maybe he just had like super bad stage fright or something.
I don't know.
But why would you wait until the very last day to say something like that? Because I know for people I've worked with and some class I have friends with, inside, there were presentations where they would just do less talking because they were less comfortable.
Yeah, sure.
I would end up doing more talking.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And
that's what I
natu-
would usually feel like.
Yeah, and then naturally they would end up doing some more of that paper side of work where I would read off of it,
Right.
right? Because I mean, you know how it works. If you're not comfortable talking, what do? You start just end up reading off the screen.
Yeah.
It's super boring, right? And I'm better at just bullshit.
Mhm.
Now and then there's Sunny who doesn't need. I'm playing. So wait, so what do you guys do? Do you guys lie for him?
No. He said fuck him. He's not getting anything.
So he said to tell you he got in a
Into
car
a car.
accident.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know, but now I hope he gets run over by a bus.
Damn.
Hey,
Yo,
you
But
get hit by
yeah,
a
it was pretty
campus
bad.
bus. It's
We were
free.
all like pissed because
So
there
make
was
sure it's not a campus bus.
Oh, it
so
wasn't.
there was 5 in this group. One guy didn't. He said he was out. The other guy didn't show up. So it's just us 3 presenting every single point,
Damn.
and it was pretty bad.
That is pretty bad.
Maybe
really bad.
extraneous situation. Maybe something happened, but that's how'd you feel? Like
I felt betrayed again.
stabbed twice.
Twice over.
I thought I was done.
Once in the front and once from the back. And then he told you to lie about it.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure he got a 0 for the presentation. So.
You know that like reminds me like betrayal. Like I had a friend who literally used my name in order for her image to get better for
Wow.
like a guy she liked.
Wait,
And
what?
yeah.
How does that work?
Wait, what?
So like
So wait, does your name sound cooler?
no, she
I don't know if she meant the literal
degraded my
sense.
name in order for her to get higher
Wait, what?
That's
In the
fucked
eyes.
up.
of a guy that she really liked.
So she like put your name down in order to raise hers up.
Yeah, like her own like what is that called? Like
It's kind of like you're drowning someone.
yeah, in order
To use them as like driftwood.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a stepping stool.
Yeah.
but literally
yeah.
just shoving you down into the ground.
Yeah.
And I just remember like one year like
How? Like I don't understand. Okay.
so like in my point of view, all of a sudden this girl stopped talking to me.
Mhm.
Like and then when I went up to her, she was saying, "Chris, I think you know this one."
Mhm, yeah, I know this one.
Yeah, like so I went up to her after like kind of like months of her just like ignoring me, literally just not giving me the cold shoulder. And then that actually hurt me a lot because for me relationships are like the most important thing in my life. So I did go up to her and I was like, hey, like I just wanted to know like what's going on and those kind of things. And what came out of her mouth was like the most like shittiest thing I've ever heard. Like she told me that is because like I use her too much and kind of basically just bringing me down right then and there. And we're alone, and then so I'm like, okay. And then 2 months later, she comes up to me and she's like, I'm sorry I said that. I didn't mean that. And it was actually other people who were telling me to do that. So she's basically blaming other people. So I'm like, at this point, I'm like, okay, we could be friends. Like, she apologized, and I'm a little gullible like that. Like, I'll just, if they apologize, then I'll just go ahead, let's be friends again. Like, literally 2 months later, she becomes cold again. And that's when I had it. I was like, I cannot do this anymore. Like, this cold and hot thing, I don't like it. So I cut her out. And that honestly was like the biggest thing out of my life because we were best friends for like years, 10 years. And so, like I just cut her out, literally took her out of my phone book, everything. Blocked her from like Instagram. Yeah, just cut her out.
No. Esther is, really frugal. She used the white, what is it?
The white books. The white papers.
The yellow books.
The yellow books. The yellow pages.
The yellow pages. There, we finally arrived. The yellow pages.
No, I meant like the thing.
She was yellow. She literally.
and so are you, so.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I'm
not
really
racist.
pale. I'm really pale, so. But, yeah, but I realized, so 2 months later after I cut her out, I heard from the people that she's actually been friends with for a while, and they told me that she actually went out with the guy that I liked too. Behind my back. So, but this is when, backtrack, when she told me that, oh, it's because you used me too much, blah, blah, blah. That was actually for her to cover that she was actually dating the guy behind my back. So during that time, I actually did like the guy, but she felt guilty. So she didn't want to tell me, so she just said that to
she
me.
just separated herself from you?
And all of a sudden, we've come back to lack of communication.
Yeah.
And just information.
But she ended up dating that guy because she liked this other guy who wouldn't like her back.
So it was like dating out of spite, yeah.
Yeah. But she ruined my relationship with her because she liked this guy.
And him too, probably.
Yeah. Literally.
I very recently
That's fucked up.
So she burned 2 bridges.
Yeah. And then that's when it just literally took me out. I was like, wow, you're going to literally use your friend as a stepping stool to get what you want.
That is terrible. Like, I can see why maybe she thought at the time it might have been good, but even after she apologized the first time, it means she probably saw what she was doing. Or maybe took a break from it. Or maybe she realized she couldn't go out the guy. Or maybe
she got caught. That's what it was.
Oh,
She
wow.
got caught
Damn.
By you?
by me, but she didn't know that I knew.
Oh.
So at this point, she doesn't know. And then she got caught by, the guy that she liked and everything. And that's why she, ran over to tell me, be like, it was their fault, not mine.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, and it was like...
So
was just,
she didn't see the light. She just tried salvaging what she could.
And all this time, I thought I was sisters before misters. I couldn't have been more wrong.
In this case, it wasn't.
Wow, that's the first time I heard of that.
Sisters before misters?
Like bros over hoes and hoes over
No. They don't say that. The only guy said that.
bros over hoes. Then
Sisters before misters.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Let's see. I never heard the sister before mister. I always thought it was chicks before dicks, and then bros before hoes. I never heard sisters before misters.
I had
It's
chicks
like the
over dicks.
PG version of chicks before dicks.
But I feel like it's a lot more common, though, for
Girls
those,
to
For
between
girls to,
girls.
go behind. Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was actually terrible.
That's a bitch move.
Because you said it was
Yes.
a close friend that did that too.
Yeah, she was practically a sister to me. But I realized that she's been doing that ever since we were younger, though. So it's just now that I realized that
She was a hoe.
she was actually doing that.
Hindsight is
Not a
2020,
hoe,
yeah.
but-
There is a point when
God.
you should kind of understand the value of your friends and how. I mean, obviously we all have emotions. We go crazy over somebody, and then we kind of do crazy stuff. We backstab people for it, but you shouldn't, because you should always keep in mind, these friends are you actually invested a lot more with them, and your future with them is probably much more important. You're gonna be destroying a lot for something, and it's just not worth it. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I made these types of mistakes before as well, where I post some things over others and realize too late. We all do that, but it's important to make sure that we understand that we want to work in everyone's best interests.
Yeah, but during those times, what the difference between her and I was I had friends who stuck up for me and who stayed by my side, who had my back, during those times. And honestly, if it weren't for them, I would not be here telling my story,
I guess teamwork really does make the dream work.
And that's a beautiful thing. Thank you, Esther, so much for coming on. We've really enjoyed having you here. You're welcome back anytime. We'll definitely enjoy hearing your stories in the future. And yeah, peace out. Bye.
See you guys next time on the Sick Podcast.
Bye.